Welcome to this BusinessRadio.media explainer. Today, we're analyzing the EU-Mercosur agreement from a strategic business perspective. This isn't about the political headlines, it's about what this deal means for industrial competitiveness. Let's actually start with the conclusion first. This quote from Europe's leading industry associations really captures the essence of the situation on the day the deal was signed. It's not just a nice sentiment, it's a clear signal that for business, this is a much-needed boost in a very uncertain global economy. And that's because this isn't some abstract political project. For European businesses on the ground, this is all about industrial necessity. It's about realism, about securing your competitiveness for the long haul, in a world that, let's face it, is changing fast. So, here's how we're going to break this down. We'll start with the new strategic landscape, then look at why business acted first. We'll cover the core industrial winners, the race for influence that's going on behind the scenes, and finally, what it takes to move from simply having access to gaining a real advantage. Okay, let's dive right in. Section 1, the new strategic landscape. So, what does this agreement actually change in practice? Forget the theory for a second. What does this mean for companies operating internationally? Well, the changes are pretty fundamental. First, you've got access to a market of over 260 million consumers. But it's more than that. The whole tariff structure is being overhauled. We're talking duties gone on over 91% of EU goods. This immediately shifts the competitive positioning, right? It gives European firms a first-mover advantage. And maybe most importantly, after 25 years of on and off negotiations, it brings predictability. You can finally make long-term investment decisions with some confidence. All right, so that's the what. But to really get why this matters so much, we have to look at the who. Specifically, why was it organized business, not just politicians, that drove the final push for this deal? You see, that joint statement by 28 European industry associations, that wasn't just noise. It was a highly coordinated institutional signal. Think about it. These associations act as early interpreters. They see the system-level risks and opportunities long before they ever hit an individual company's balance sheet. And we're talking about the backbone of European industry here. Automotive, machinery, chemicals, food and drink, textiles. These groups aggregate incredibly complex supply chains. They understand the friction points, and they can anticipate a competitive threat before it becomes a crisis. This wasn't just lobbying. It was a clear signal. Okay, so who really stands to benefit the most from this new access? Let's walk through the core industrial winners, sector by sector. Let's start with automotive. Look at this. A 35% tariff is a huge barrier. Phasing that down to zero, even over time, fundamentally changes the entire export calculation. It affects decisions about where you invest in platforms, where you build, where you ship from. It's a game changer for the sector. Now, for machinery and engineering, you're looking at tariffs of between 14 and 20%. Getting rid of those is massive. It means European firms can compete on their real strengths, things like quality, life cycle value, and high standards, instead of being forced to compete on price alone. Then you have chemicals and pharma. Here, it's less about the price point and much more about trust. Sure, tariff elimination is good, but aligning regulations is the real prize. It strengthens the depth of the EU supply chain because in these sectors, compliance and trust are absolutely decisive. It's a similar story for premium food and drink. You've got high tariffs right now on things like wine, spirits, and chocolates, up to 35% in some cases. Removing those rewards brand integrity. It allows these high-value exports to compete on their origin and their quality standards, not on trying to be the cheapest. And finally, textiles and footwear. That existing 35% tariff pressure has been a real issue. Eliminating it helps Europe's higher value segments, the ones defined by design and quality, to compete much more effectively against low-cost alternatives. So, those are the winners. But you have to remember, this agreement wasn't signed in a vacuum. It was a very direct response to a changing geopolitical reality. Which brings us to a really crucial point. Why was this deal so urgent for European business? What was the competitive pressure that suddenly made this a now or never moment? Well, the answer is China's structural presence in Latin America. China is the #1 trading partner for South America. It's a massive foreign direct investor, especially in mining and agriculture. European engagement, by comparison, was falling behind, risking a serious long-term disadvantage. And this quote from the European Council on Foreign Relations really puts it perfectly. Failing to sign this deal risked pushing those economies closer to Beijing's orbit. So you have to see the agreement as both defensive, protecting Europe's position, and proactive, offering a different kind of partnership. Okay, so the agreement opens the door. But how do you turn that market access into a real sustainable competitive advantage? Well, that requires a shift in execution. For companies on the ground, this means focusing on three key actions. One, communicate credibility. You have to move from just talking about ambition to showing proven capability. Two, demonstrate compliance. You need to showcase traceability and that you adhere to the standards. And three, present a coherent narrative. You need a clear international business story, because greater market access always brings greater scrutiny. And that's really the heart of the matter. Trade agreements open doors, but it's trust that determines who actually gets invited inside. And that really is the key takeaway here. You've got frameworks versus outcomes. A trade framework like this one creates the opportunity, but it's the companies themselves that have to create the outcomes. Here at BusinessRadio.media, our entire focus is on translating these complex shifts into clear, credible business reality. We work under the direction of our editor-in-chief to bring you this kind of analysis. Our job is to help European business understand where the world is moving before all the noise arrives. Thank you for joining this explainer.